Why does the person who once celebrated your victories now celebrate your failures? Why does the friend who used to lift you up now tear you down? The answer cuts deeper than betrayal, deeper than jealousy, deeper than simple human weakness. The answer lies in the mirror you've become. You see, when you begin to transform, when you start becoming the person you were meant to be, something extraordinary happens. You become a living, breathing reflection of what others could become if they had the courage to face themselves. And for most people, that reflection is unbearable. Think about the last time someone close to you suddenly turned cold. What had changed? Not their character. That was always there, waiting beneath the surface. What changed was you. You elevated. You evolved. You stopped accepting less than you deserved, and in that moment you held up a mirror to everyone around you. The human mind cannot tolerate cognitive dissonance for long. When faced with your growth, people have two choices: rise to meet you or tear you down to their level. Guess which one requires less effort? Guess which one protects their comfortable delusions about why they haven't changed? Your transformation threatens the very foundation of their excuses. For years they've told themselves stories. Success is for other people. Only lucky people get ahead. The system is rigged. Good things don't happen to people like us. Then you come along, someone from their same environment, their same background, their same starting point, and you shatter every limiting belief they've used to justify their stagnation. This is not about arrogance. This is about understanding the raw mechanics of human psychology. When you stop complaining and start building, when you stop making excuses and start making progress, when you stop settling and start demanding excellence from yourself, you expose everyone else's choice to remain small. Your discipline becomes an indictment of their laziness. Your growth becomes evidence of their stagnation. Your courage becomes a spotlight on their cowardice. Your success becomes proof that their failure was a choice, not a circumstance. But here's what you must understand with absolute clarity. Their hatred is not really about you. It never was. Their hatred is about the gap between who they are and who they could be, reflected back at them through your example. You've become the embodiment of their unlived life, their abandoned dreams, their surrendered potential. When they see you pushing through obstacles they used as excuses, when they watch you succeed where they gave up, when they witness you becoming everything they told themselves was impossible, they're forced to confront a truth that destroys their peace. They could have done it too. This realization creates a rage so deep, so primal, that it overwhelms every other emotion. It's easier to hate you than to hate themselves. It's easier to tear you down than to build themselves up. It's easier to make you the villain than to admit they've been living as a victim of their own choices. Water takes the shape of its container, but it never loses its essential nature. When hatred flows toward you, you must be like water. You cannot change its direction by fighting it directly. You cannot stop it by standing rigid against it. You can only flow around it, maintaining your form while adapting to the landscape. The moment you start explaining yourself to people who have decided to misunderstand you, you've already lost. The moment you dim your light to make others comfortable in their darkness, you've betrayed your own potential. The moment you apologize for your growth, you give them permission to drag you back down. Their hatred tells a story, but it's not the story they think they're telling. When someone suddenly starts finding fault with everything you do, when they begin questioning motives they never questioned before, when they start seeing arrogance where they once saw confidence, they're revealing more about themselves than they realize. You must learn to read the language of opposition. Every criticism, every attack, every attempt to diminish you contains information about the critic's own limitations. They attack your discipline because they lack it. They question your integrity because they've compromised their own. They mock your ambition because they've abandoned theirs. The most dangerous enemies are not strangers, they're the people who know your past, your struggles, your moments of weakness. These people feel entitled to keep you in the box they've built for you in their minds. When you outgrow that box, when you refuse to play the role they assigned you, when you transcend the limitations they've accepted for themselves, they experience it as a personal betrayal. But here's the truth they cannot bear to acknowledge: you never betrayed them. You simply stopped betraying yourself. You never abandoned them. You simply stopped abandoning your dreams. You never became their enemy. You simply stopped being your own. The pain in their eyes when they look at you is not hatred, it's grief. They're mourning the death of their excuses. They're grieving the comfortable lie that change is impossible, that growth is reserved for others, that they are victims of circumstances beyond their control. Your very existence has become an argument against everything they've told themselves about why their life is the way it is. You are walking proof that transformation is possible, that excuses are choices, that the only prison is the one they've built in their own mind. This is why your old friends seem like strangers. This is why family members who once supported you now seem to sabotage you. This is why people who claim to love you seem threatened by your success. Your growth has revealed who they really are, and they cannot forgive you for holding up that mirror. But understand this with crystal clarity. You are not responsible for their reaction to your reflection. You are not obligated to dim your light so they can avoid confronting their darkness. You are not required to stay small so they can feel big. You are not meant to sacrifice your potential on the altar of their comfort. The master understands that every technique has a counter, every strength has a weakness, every advance meets resistance. The hatred you face is not evidence that you're doing something wrong. It's confirmation that you're doing something right. It's proof that your transformation is real, that your growth is threatening the status quo, that your light is bright enough to expose the shadows others hide in. When water encounters a rock, it doesn't waste energy cursing the obstacle. It doesn't spend time wondering why the rock won't move. It simply finds another way, flowing around, over or under, maintaining its essential nature while adapting to the terrain. This is your model for dealing with those who oppose your growth. Their hatred cannot touch your progress unless you let it. Their criticism cannot slow your momentum unless you give it weight. Their attempts to pull you back cannot succeed unless you turn around to engage with them. Keep moving forward. Keep growing. Keep becoming. You must develop the emotional discipline of a warrior. A warrior does not fight every battle. A warrior does not respond to every provocation. A warrior conserves energy for what matters, maintaining focus on the objective while lesser minds get distracted by ego and emotion. The person who hates your success will never admit that your discipline makes them uncomfortable. The person who criticizes your ambition will never acknowledge that your drive highlights their complacency. The person who questions your motives will never confess that your integrity exposes their compromise. Instead, they'll create narratives. You've changed. You think you're better than everyone else. Success has gone to your head. You've forgotten where you came from. These stories serve one purpose: to justify their decision to tear you down rather than lift themselves up. But you know the truth. You know that changing is exactly what you were supposed to do. You know that thinking highly of yourself is healthier than thinking poorly of yourself. You know that success is meant to elevate your standards, not lower them. You know that remembering where you came from includes remembering why you left. The mirror you've become reflects not just their limitations but their potential. Some will see that potential and be inspired to act. These people will remain in your life, growing alongside you, celebrating your victories as previews of their own. Others will see that potential and be consumed by regret, resentment and rage. These people will try to break the mirror rather than face what it shows them. Your job is not to convince them to look. Your job is not to make the reflection more comfortable. Your job is to keep polishing yourself until you shine so brightly that even those who refuse to look cannot help but see the light. The paradox of transformation is that the very people who should celebrate your growth are often the ones most threatened by it. The paradox of success is that those closest to you may become your greatest obstacles. The paradox of becoming who you're meant to be is that it requires leaving behind who others need you to be. This is not cruelty. This is evolution. This is not abandonment, might. This is advancement. This is not betrayal. This is becoming. And becoming is the most threatening thing you can do in a world full of people who have given up on becoming anything more than they already are. Water doesn't apologize for flowing downhill. Fire doesn't apologize for burning bright. The sun doesn't apologize for rising. And you must not apologize for growing into the person you were always meant to become. Their hatred is temporary. Your growth is permanent. Their opinion is fleeting. Your transformation is lasting. Their resistance is finite. Your potential is infinite. Remember this when the attacks come, when the criticism flows, when the people you trusted turn against you. They are not really fighting you. They are fighting the reflection of themselves they see in your mirror. They are not really hating you. They are hating the reminder of what they could become if they had the courage to face themselves. You are not the problem. You are the solution they refuse to accept. You are not the enemy. You are the example they cannot follow. You are not the villain in their story. You are the hero in yours, and that is what they cannot forgive. But understanding why people hate your light is only the beginning. The real challenge comes when you realize that transformation itself is the great divider, the force that separates those who evolve from those who remain static. Growth doesn't just change you, it changes everything around you. Show me someone who complains about feeling lonely at the top, and I'll show you someone who finally understands the price of refusing to stay at the bottom. The path of transformation is not just difficult because of the work required. It's difficult because of the isolation it creates. Every step forward is a step away from those who choose to stay where they are. When you were struggling, you had plenty of company. Misery loves company, and mediocrity loves it even more. There's comfort in shared limitation, safety in collective stagnation. When everyone around you is making excuses, your excuses seem reasonable. When everyone around you is settling for less, your settling seems normal. When everyone around you has given up on their dreams, your surrender seems inevitable. But the moment you decide to break free, the moment you refuse to accept the limitations others have embraced, you step out of the crowd and onto a path that most people are too afraid to walk. This is where the real hatred begins. Not just because you're holding up a mirror, but because you're walking away from the group. Humans are tribal creatures. We find safety in numbers, comfort in conformity, and identity in belonging. When you outgrow your tribe, when you evolve beyond your environment, when you transcend the boundaries that define your group, you commit the ultimate betrayal in their eyes. You leave them behind. They will never frame it this way. They will never admit that your growth threatens their sense of identity and belonging. Instead, they will create stories about how you've changed, how success has corrupted you, how you've forgotten your roots. But what they're really saying is this: you've stopped being who we need you to be so we can remain who we are. Your transformation challenges the fundamental agreements that held your relationships together. These agreements were never spoken, but they were understood. We'll all stay small together. We'll all struggle together. We'll all complain together. We'll all dream together without ever actually pursuing those dreams. We'll all accept our limitations and find comfort in shared mediocrity. When you break these unspoken agreements, when you refuse to participate in collective limitation, when you stop enabling others' excuses by sharing them, you become a threat to the entire system. You've disrupted the equilibrium. You've broken the rules. You've upset the balance that allowed everyone to feel okay about their choices. The transformation paradox reveals itself in this truth: the people who should be happiest about your growth are often the most threatened by it. Your family, who raised you to be successful, suddenly finds your success uncomfortable. Your friends who encouraged your dreams, suddenly find your achievement annoying. Your partner, who said they wanted you to reach your potential, suddenly finds your potential threatening. This is not hypocrisy. This is human nature. People want you to succeed, but not too much. They want you to grow, but not too far. They want you to improve, but not enough to leave them behind. They want you to be better, but not so much better that it makes them look worse by comparison. The loneliness of transformation is not a bug in the system. It's a feature. Growth requires space. Evolution demands separation. Transformation necessitates transcendence. You cannot become who you're meant to be while remaining who others need you to be. But here's what they will never tell you, what they may not even understand themselves: their resistance to your growth is really resistance to their own potential. Every time they try to pull you back down, they're trying to avoid the confrontation with their own unrealized possibilities. Every time they make you feel guilty for growing, they're trying to avoid the guilt of not growing themselves. The warrior understands that some battles cannot be won by fighting. Some obstacles cannot be overcome by force. Some resistance cannot be conquered by effort. Sometimes, the only way forward is to walk away. Sometimes, the only way to grow is to grow apart. Water does not ask permission to flow downhill. It does not apologize to the rocks it erodes. It does not negotiate with the obstacles it encounters. It simply flows, following the path of least resistance while maintaining its essential nature. Your growth must be like water: persistent, patient, and ultimately unstoppable. When you elevate your standards, you automatically eliminate people who cannot meet them. When you raise your expectations, you naturally exclude those who cannot fulfill them. When you demand more from yourself, you inevitably distance yourself from those who demand less. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. The person who used to relate to your struggles cannot relate to your success. The person who connected with your pain cannot connect with your progress. The person who understood your limitations cannot understand your liberation. This is not their fault, and it's not yours. This is simply the reality of transformation. You must learn to distinguish between those who are threatened by your growth and those who are inspired by it. The threatened ones will always have an excuse for why they cannot change. The inspired ones will always find a way to change. The threatened ones will focus on your flaws to justify their stagnation. The inspired ones will focus on your example to fuel their motivation. The people who remain in your life after your transformation are not the same people who were there before it. Either they have grown alongside you, or they have revealed their true nature by opposing your growth. Either way, your evolution has served its purpose. It has shown you who belongs in your elevated reality and who belongs in your past. But the transformation paradox cuts both ways. Just as your growth threatens those who refuse to grow, their stagnation threatens your continued evolution. Energy is contagious. Mediocrity is infectious. Limitation is viral. If you're not careful, their resistance to your growth can become your own resistance to your growth. This is why the warrior develops emotional immunity. This is why the master learns to flow like water. This is why the evolved person understands that their greatest battle is not with external enemies, but with the internal temptation to return to comfort, to familiarity, to the safety of the group. The pressure to conform is not just external limiting. Part of you misses the simplicity of shared struggle. Part of you longs for the comfort of collective limitation. Part of you wants to return to the familiar pain rather than face the unfamiliar challenges of continued growth, but you cannot go back. The person who has tasted freedom cannot return to slavery. The person who has seen the mountaintop cannot pretend the valley is the highest point. The person who has experienced their own power cannot pretend to be powerless. The person who has touched their potential cannot pretend it doesn't exist. This is why they hate you with such intensity. You are living proof that the cage they've built around themselves has no lock. You are walking evidence that the limitations they've accepted are not absolute. You are breathing testimony that transformation is possible, that growth is achievable, that evolution is a choice. Your very existence invalidates their excuses. Your success undermines their victim narrative. Your progress exposes their stagnation. Your transformation reveals their choice to remain unchanged. And for this they will never forgive you. The great divider is not success or failure, wealth or poverty, talent or lack thereof. The great divider is the willingness to grow versus the commitment to remain the same. On one side stand those who embrace change, who welcome challenge, who see obstacles as opportunities and setbacks as setups for comebacks. On the other side stand those who resist change, who avoid challenge, who see obstacles as endings and setbacks as evidence that they should never have tried in the first place. You cannot stand on both sides. You cannot grow and remain the same. You cannot evolve and stay static. You cannot transform and maintain the status quo. The transformation paradox demands that you choose your growth or their comfort, your evolution or their familiarity, your potential or their peace of mind. The warrior chooses growth, knowing it leads to isolation. The master chooses evolution, knowing it leads to separation. The transformed person chooses potential, knowing it leads to loneliness, but this loneliness is not emptiness. It is space. Space for new relationships built on your new reality. Space for connections based on who you're becoming rather than who you used to be. Space for people who celebrate your growth rather than resent it. Your transformation has created a vacuum around you, and nature abhors a vacuum. That space will be filled, but not with the people who left. It will be filled with people who can match your new energy, who can meet your elevated standards, who can walk alongside you on the path you've chosen. The old saying is wrong. You cannot take everyone with you to the top. The mountain path is narrow, the climb is steep, and not everyone has the strength or the will to make the ascent. Some will turn back at the first sign of difficulty. Others will quit when the path gets uncomfortable. Still others will try to convince you to come back down because they're afraid to climb higher. Your job is not to carry them. Your job is not to slow down for them. Your job is not to abandon your climb to make them feel better about staying at the bottom. Your job is to keep climbing, to keep growing, to keep transforming, trusting that those who are meant to be with you at the summit will find the strength to make their own ascent. The transformation paradox is complete when you realize that growing apart from some people is the only way to grow toward others. Losing relationships based on your limitations is the only way to gain relationships based on your potential. Disappointing those who preferred your struggles is the only way to inspire those who celebrate your success. You are not responsible for other people's choice to remain unchanged. You are only responsible for your own choice to keep growing. And as you stand at the crossroads between your past and your future, between who you were and who you're becoming, remember this: the path of transformation is lonely, but the destination is worth every step of the journey. Now comes the moment of ultimate mastery, the point where you stop being affected by their hatred and start being empowered by it. This is the alchemy of opposition, the ancient art of transmuting base metals into gold, of converting negative energy into unstoppable momentum. What if I told you that their hatred is not your enemy but your fuel? What if their opposition is not your obstacle but your training ground? What if their resistance is not your weakness but your greatest source of strength? The master understands something that the student cannot comprehend. Opposition is not something to be avoided. It's something to be utilized. Every attack makes you stronger. Every criticism sharpens your focus. Every attempt to tear you down builds your foundation higher. Their hatred becomes the very force that propels you forward. Think about this for a moment, and I want you to really think about it. When has comfort ever created greatness? When has ease ever forged strength? When has acceptance ever built character? Never. It is always resistance that creates resilience. It is always pressure that creates diamonds. It is always opposition that creates champions. The blacksmith does not curse the fire that heats the metal. The sculptor does not resent the resistance of the stone. The warrior does not complain about the strength of the opponent. They understand that without resistance there can be no refinement. Without opposition, there can be no victory. Without challenge, there can be no victory. Your haters have become your unpaid personal trainers. Every time they attack you, they force you to become stronger. Every time they doubt you, they compel you to prove them wrong. Every time they try to diminish you, they motivate you to expand. They think they're tearing you down, but they're actually building you up. The ancient masters knew this secret. They understood that the enemy's attack reveals the enemy's weakness. When someone attacks your confidence, they reveal their insecurity. When someone questions your integrity, they expose their dishonesty. When someone mocks your ambition, they confess their complacency. Their hatred is a map of their limitations, and once you learn to read that map, you become undefeatable. But here's where most people fail. They take the attacks personally. They internalize the criticism. They allow the hatred to penetrate their consciousness and poison their confidence. They make the fundamental error of believing that other people's opinions have power over their reality. The warrior knows better. The warrior understands that opinions are not facts. The warrior recognizes that other people's limitations cannot limit you unless you accept them as your own. The warrior sees hatred not as judgment, but as information. Information about the hater's character, not the hater's worth. When water encounters fire, it doesn't become fire. When water meets ice, it doesn't become ice. When water faces steam, it doesn't become steam. Water remains water, adapting its form while maintaining its essence. This is your model for dealing with opposition. Maintain your essence while adapting your strategy. Their hatred cannot change who you are unless you let it. Their criticism cannot define your worth unless you accept their definition. Their attempts to stop you cannot succeed unless you stop yourself. The power is always in your hands. But most people don't realize this power. Most people live as if other people's opinions are oxygen, as if they need approval to breathe, validation to live, acceptance to exist. This is the slavery of the unenlightened mind, the prison of the unawakened consciousness. The master breathes their own air. The master validates their own worth. The master accepts their own existence as sufficient. When you reach this level of self-possession, other people's hatred becomes as irrelevant as their praise. Both are equally meaningless, because your worth is not determined by external validation. Now watch what happens when you reach this state of inner mastery. The people who once had power over your emotions suddenly find themselves powerless. The critics who once could wound you with words discover that their weapons have no effect. The haters who once could drain your energy realize that you've become immune to their poison. This immunity is not built overnight. It's forged in the fire of opposition, tempered by the hammer of criticism, sharpened by the stone of resistance. Every attack that doesn't destroy you makes you more invulnerable. Every criticism that doesn't break you makes you more unbreakable. Every attempt to diminish you that fails makes you more indestructible. The beautiful irony is this: the more they try to tear you down, the stronger you become. The more they attempt to stop you, the more unstoppable you become. The more they resist your rise, the higher you ascend. They become the very force that powers your elevation. But here's the secret that separates the master from the student, the warrior from the soldier, the alchemist from the ordinary person. You must learn to be grateful for the opposition. You must develop appreciation for the resistance. You must cultivate thankfulness for the hatred. This is not masochism, this is wisdom. This is not weakness, this is strength. This is not delusion, this is understanding. You become grateful because you realize that without opposition you would never discover your true power. Without resistance you would never develop your full strength. Without hatred you would never achieve complete immunity. The lion is not grateful for the gazelle's cooperation. The lion is grateful for the gazelle's speed because it makes the lion faster. The eagle is not grateful for the wind's assistance. The eagle is grateful for the wind's resistance because it makes the eagle stronger. The mountain is not grateful for the river's gentleness. The mountain is grateful for the river's persistence because it carves the mountain into its most beautiful form. Your haters are carving you into your most powerful form. They're forcing you to develop muscles you didn't know you had. They're compelling you to access resources you didn't know existed. They're pushing you to heights you didn't know were possible. Every master has a story of opposition. Every champion has a tale of resistance. Every legend has a history of hatred. But what separates the masters from the masses is this. The masters used the opposition as fuel, while the masses used it as an excuse. The masters transmuted the hatred into power, while the masses allowed it to poison their potential. The highest level of martial arts is not defeating your opponent. It's making your opponent's strength work for you. The ultimate victory is not overpowering resistance. It's redirecting resistance to serve your purpose. The supreme mastery is not avoiding opposition. It's transforming opposition into opportunity. When someone attacks your character, use it as motivation to strengthen your integrity. When someone questions your abilities, use it as inspiration to develop your skills. When someone doubts your vision, use it as fuel to prove your prophecy. When someone hates your success, use it as energy to achieve even greater success. This is the alchemy of opposition, turning their lead into your gold, their poison into your medicine, their hatred into your power. But this transformation requires a fundamental shift in perspective. You must stop seeing yourself as a victim of their hatred and start seeing yourself as a beneficiary of their opposition. The victim says, "Why are they doing this to me?" The master says, "How can I use this to become stronger?" The victim asks, "When will this stop?" The master asks, "How can I make this work for me?" The victim declares this is unfair. The master declares this is training. When you make this shift, something miraculous happens. The very people who sought to weaken you become the source of your strength. The very forces that aim to stop you become the wind beneath your wings. The very opposition that was meant to defeat you becomes the foundation of your victory. But here's the final piece of the puzzle, the ultimate secret of emotional mastery. You must learn to win without fighting. You must discover how to triumph without conflict. You must master the art of victory through indifference. The highest form of power is not the power to defeat your enemies. It's the power to make their enmity irrelevant. The greatest strength is not the strength to overcome opposition. It's the strength to make opposition meaningless. The ultimate mastery is not conquering your haters. It's transcending the need for their approval or disapproval. When you reach this level, their hatred cannot touch you because you've moved beyond their reach. Their criticism cannot wound you because you've developed immunity to their poison. Their attempts to diminish you cannot succeed because you've transcended their limited perspective. You become like the sun, shining equally on those who love you and those who hate you, giving your light freely regardless of how it's received, maintaining your radiance regardless of the clouds that try to block you. The sun doesn't argue with the darkness. The sun doesn't fight the shadows. The sun simply shines, and in shining it eliminates both. This is your ultimate destination, not the elimination of opposition, but the transcendence of opposition, not the defeat of hatred, but the irrelevance of hatred. Not the conquest of your enemies, but the evolution beyond the need for enemies. At this level you realize that their hatred was never about you. It was always about them. Their opposition was never your problem. It was their solution to their own inadequacy. Their resistance was never your obstacle. It was their attempt to avoid facing their own potential. You become genuinely compassionate toward those who hate you because you understand that their hatred is their prison, not yours. You feel authentic sympathy for those who oppose you because you recognize that their opposition is their limitation, not yours. You develop real empathy for those who try to diminish you because you see that their attempts reveal their own diminishment, not yours. This compassion is not weakness. It's the ultimate strength. This sympathy is not vulnerability. It's invulnerability. This empathy is not sensitivity. It's immunity. When you can feel genuine compassion for those who hate you, you've achieved emotional mastery. When you can maintain sympathy for those who oppose you, you've reached spiritual maturity. When you can hold empathy for those who try to tear you down, you've attained true power. The master's final victory is not over external enemies but over internal reactivity. The warrior's ultimate conquest is not of opposing forces but of emotional volatility. The alchemist's greatest transformation is not of base metals into gold but of hatred into fuel, opposition into opportunity, resistance into resilience. You started this journey wondering why people suddenly hate you. You now understand that their hatred is not about you. It's about the mirror you've become, the division your growth creates, and the opposition that reveals their limitations. But more importantly, you now possess the power to transmute their hatred into your strength, their opposition into your opportunity, their resistance into your resilience. Their hatred cannot stop you because you've learned to use it as fuel. Their opposition cannot defeat you because you've discovered how to make it work for you. Their resistance cannot break you because you've developed the ability to bend without breaking, to flow around obstacles while maintaining your direction, to transform every attack into an advantage. You are no longer the person who wonders why people hate you. You are now the person who understands why people must hate you. You has learned to love them for it. Not because you enjoy their hatred, but because you appreciate its function in your evolution. Not because you welcome their opposition, but because you understand its role in your development. Not because you seek their resistance, but because you recognize its value in your transformation. The lion does not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. The eagle does not concern itself with the criticism of chickens. The mountain does not worry about the judgment of pebbles. And you nurse, you who have mastered the alchemy of opposition, you do not define yourself by the hatred of those who lack the courage to transform themselves. You shine your light not because everyone appreciates it, but because shining is your nature. You pursue your growth not because everyone supports it, but because growing is your purpose. You become who you're meant to be, not because everyone celebrates it, but because becoming is your destiny. Their hatred is temporary, your transformation is permanent. Their opposition is finite, your power is infinite. Their resistance is limited, your potential is limitless. You have learned the secret of secrets, the master key to emotional freedom, the ultimate formula for unshakable confidence. Other people's hatred of your light cannot dim your radiance unless you hand them the switch. And you nurse, master of your own destiny, alchemist of your own experience, warrior of your own journey, you will never, ever hand them that switch. This is your victory. This is your mastery. This is your power. Not the power over others, but the power over yourself. Not the power to control their hatred, but the power to transform it into your strength. Not the power to stop their opposition, but the power to make it irrelevant to your progress. You are free, free from the need for their approval, free from the fear of their disapproval, free from the weight of their opinions, free from the burden of their expectations, free from the prison of their limitations. And in this freedom, you find your true power, the power to be authentically yourself, regardless of who loves you for it or who hates you for it. This is the ultimate alchemy, the final transformation, the complete mastery, becoming so secure in your own worth, that other people's opinions become as irrelevant as yesterday's weather. You have transmuted their hatred into your power, now go forth and shine.